I'm joined today by Dr. Kristina Strong. She is a personal resilience and self-compassion coach and happens to be a friend of a friend. We have some things in common as far as our background with grief and loss. And so I'm really, really happy, Kristina, that you would come and have a discussion with me about what you've learned and what things I might be able to learn from you about dealing with this kind of grief and loss. So, Kristina, would you introduce yourself a little bit, where you're from, family background, hobbies, interests, job, anything like that?
All the things.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me here on your podcast. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the opportunity to share. It's new to me to share my story. So I would appreciate, thank you for this and the grace and compassion. I am from Spokane. I have been here most of my life. Mainly, my most important job right now is to be a parent to my lovely 15-year-old son. And I enjoy going hiking and being out in nature. And I am, yes, a self compassion and personal resilience coach. I was a therapist for 10 years in private practice prior to that. But after losing my husband, I um, was feeling a bit burned out and overwhelmed by just managing a private practice. So taking, I started diving into mindfulness as a way to one, help my clients, but also kind of to help myself. And I really didn't realize how much it was going to help me and how much it was going to be part of my own personal growth. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to become a life coach. And so I took the classes and became, and tested and became a board certified life coach too. So I have all these, really great, tools that I have been able to help myself manage my own personal grief with losing my husband. And so I'm really grateful to have these tools and to share and to, support you and support other people with managing their own, grief and loss.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that, especially because I don't think I've really explored the mindfulness angle. And so I'm really, really looking forward to hearing more from you about that.
Mhm.
And I love that this part of your life journey has it has been something so intentional,
Mm.
because you were just saying you you were a therapist, and then when your husband passed away, that experience really throws your whole life into a new vortex.
Mhm.
And from what I was hearing you say, it sounded like you really conscientiously were able to see that it was going to be best for you to shift direction a little bit. And so I'm excited about hearing more about that process and what things that you have learned and incorporated and now are teaching other people that are helpful when it comes to grief.
Yeah. And so it's been about 8 years, almost 8 years. The anniversary will come up on October 15th of this year will be 8 years. And during the beginning of after my husband passed away, it was the obvious, you're just numb. You're in shock and disbelief. You're surviving. You're trying to just figure out how you're going to live the rest of your life without your person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, you just don't know what your future is going to look like. You don't know how, you're second guessing everything you do. And, how am I going to take care of my son? And so it's just all this unknown and uncertainty and fear. Um, and so trying to just kind of be living on autopilot. And, then I took a month off of my work of my private practice. And then I returned and trying to be as grounded as possible and with my clients. And it was nice to be able to support them with what was going on and kind of get me out of my own head and my own space. And, um, but yeah, after a couple years, I had taken a mindfulness course a long time before that, and which I feel like I'm going to be all over the place, but if I give you a little backstory, this might make a little bit more sense
Yeah, please do.
with the
Yeah.
mindfulness piece, where I took a class for continuing education, and maybe it was like 12, 13 years ago. And just to be able to like, this is how I want to learn about it. I want to be able to support my clients in it. And then it became how I coped with my mom got a diagnosis of cancer. And so during that year of her fighting and, battling cancer, I really used my mindfulness practice to be able to kind of just sit with and ground myself. And it was a practice that was more like, I'm out gardening and I'm pulling weeds and I'm connected to the earth and just staying present and trying to um, be with my emotions, be with my thoughts, and just be grounded, literally and figuratively.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then unfortunately, my mom had passed. Then a year and a half later, I was taking care of my stepdad, and my stepdad passed away. And then 2 months later, my husband passed away.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so there was a big, I'd lost my people. And
Mhm.
I, um, so it's not just my husband, but it was a combination that I had to get through, which took quite a long time. Um,
Wow. That's a
yeah.
lot of loss, Christina. I mean,
Mhm. Mhm.
major, major loss. That's so later on I want to come back to this question of how your training helped you,
Yeah.
in the grief. But would you just take a minute and tell me a little bit about your mom, your stepdad, and your husband? You know,
Mm.
I never met any of them. I would love to hear about them, the personalities, what you loved about them.
Yeah. So, um, my mom and our relationship was actually somewhat challenging,
Mhm.
which then makes grief a little bit more complicated. But she was a good person in her own right, struggled with her own, she had addictions, and so it was our relationship where it was kind of at an arm's length. And
Mhm.
so when you lose somebody in that kind of relationship, it kind of it compounds the grief to you're not going to have the person or the mom that you wanted,
Right.
and that relationship is never really going to repair.
Yeah.
And so, but now I'm kind of like I have so much compassion for
Mhm.
her story, for what why she was the way she was, where now I have a lot of forgiveness in my heart for her. um, so it was very uh, this process, right? This process of mindfulness and compassion has allowed me to come around and like hold her with love in my heart. But it takes a while, and growth and understanding and empathy and learning that, she was just doing the best she could with what she knew how to do, when it comes to, parenting.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's a very, very powerful idea, actually,
mhm,
because I think a lot of people can relate to that.
mhm,
Um, But I like what you're saying, that you have been able to come to a place of compassion for her,
Mhm.
and yet acknowledge that it was difficult. I think that's very honest and pretty universal, except for very lucky people whose parents just are so awesome. you know, you know.
Right.
And maybe
Yeah.
that gives us compassion for ourselves as parents too, where it's like, yeah, trying to be awesome. But I love that idea. Thank you for sharing that
Yeah.
about her. So tell me
Mhm.
about your stepdad then. How
Mhm.
long was he in your life?
Well, he was my mom and my stepdad married when I was 7. Yeah, I was 7 years
Okay.
old for most of my life, of course.
Yeah.
And so, and it was he had his struggles too. And it was just kind of a tumultuous and at times, just kind of living with alcoholic parents. It was not
Mm.
things
Hmm.
weren't easy.
Yeah.
Um, but I did, after my mom passed, we did start spending more time together. I was pretty much his caregiver, got him to his appointments, and made sure his meds were taken care of. And so, we did start building a bond and building a relationship the last year and a half of our time together. We would have dinners, and he was really good to my son. And so,
Mhm.
there was some real connection and repair that was able to happen before he passed away. So that
Oh,
was lovely.
that is
Mhm.
really.
Mhm.
And so he would have known your husband
Yeah.
because he'd been in your life.
Yeah.
So now tell me a little bit about your husband.
Oh, that just brought up something for me. And so, so my husband's nickname is Pig.
Okay.
And so this is, and
Like,
he's been, and so you want to know a little bit about him and who he was as a person.
yeah.
He, it was a high school nickname. Everybody knew Pig is Pig. But
Oh,
my
that's so funny.
Yeah, so my stepdad would he came up with, there was like a joke between the two of them, and he challenged my stepdad to you pick a nickname that I haven't heard before. And so my nickname, or he nicknamed him, he said Piggles. And
Pickles.
so
Okay.
since then, my husband and I call him Piggles all the time now. It's like, so he's
Oh, I
been
love that. I love that.
So yeah, it's pretty funny. He's so literally larger than life
Mhm.
person, the biggest heart. If he loved you hard.
Oh.
And so yeah, and I yeah,
So
he's
you guys met in high school. Were you friends in high school then, or?
yeah, we were friends in high school, hung out with the same people. Yeah, we were really good friends. Never
Mm.
anybody that I thought I was going to date. and, and, because we were just pals. And then fast forward, I'm 28 years old and, oh, I think I'm in love with you. And so
Oh.
we pursued our relationship
Mm.
into marriage. And so, yeah, he's
What a
my
great
best.
foundation going into. I mean, that you were already
Mhm.
friends.
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, friends for 25 years,
Mm.
together for 13, married for 10. So yeah, he's was part of my life more than half of my life.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And so then his absence has got
Mm.
to feel so strange.
Devastating.
Yes. Yeah, yeah,
Devastating.
yeah. Is there even a word to
Yeah.
describe?
Yeah. Yeah. He Yeah, so with he was very social, and it's like he was kind of the person that made things happen. He was the one that gathered all the friends. We were avid campers, and so let's go camping, and then he'd give everybody else jobs, like, okay, you're going to bring this and you're going to do that, and but everybody loved it. Everybody loved him and the energy that he brought, and then bringing us all together. So yeah,
I love
and we all
that.
and we all were raising our kids together too. So
Oh, that's even more fun.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
Wow. And these are, yeah, so these are your friends that you've gone through high school and young adulthood and now marriage and
Yeah,
children.
yeah. Mhm.
Wow. Oh, wow. So his loss has had devastating repercussions, not just in that core of your family, but it just spreads out.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. He, um, our circle of people, and it's like people that knew him, it was just like it's totally devastating that
Mhm.
he's no longer in the world with us.
So what do all of you do now?
We still stick with our traditions because he was a very much a tradition kind of person where it's like we're going to do these things, and so we have our Memorial Day camping trips, and so we always do. We camp. At least now since it's been 8 years and people have moved and living their own lives. We do intentionally get together about twice a summer for a week long 2 week long camping trips, and yeah.
That's amazing.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's amazing, Christina.
Yeah.
Wow. So many people when they lose a spouse or a significant person that's involved, in other relationships, right? So many times it can kind of break apart and people go their separate ways. This is
Mhm.
really special that
It
you
is
guys have
very
continued. Yeah. So
yeah.
have you been kind of the force behind that, or did somebody else take up the reins, or how did that work?
I feel like that the role it like other people took charge for sure in the beginning, and like we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that, and because we had a ritual to our camping trips, and
Mhm.
so and we just kept it as just the way it was the first year, absolutely, with all the things that we did, and just other people kind of took over. Now it's a mutual kind of, all right, what are we going to do, who's going to do what are we bringing for food, and it's just kind of it's just become our own personal ritual still, and we sit around the fire and we tell stories about him,
Oh,
and laugh, and just like he would want it to be, just like. And so now with my son being 15, he hangs out with us, he listens to the stories, and he really loves that.
wow.
Hmm.
Wow.
Hmm.
That is
Hmm.
really, really special.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you shared that. I feel like that's a just such it's so honoring to your husband. It really does give me this picture in my mind. I mean, somebody really would have to be so deep in people's lives, so larger than life that his all these things that were kind of his thing to set up would continue because he had been such an amazing it's like a legacy. That's the word. That was the word I
Mhm.
was
Right.
looking
Yeah.
for. What a legacy to leave.
Mhm.
Because these
Mhm.
are things that, like, family members do together, but to
Right.
have a group of friends, that's so special.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important to all of
Mhm.
us to be able to at least connect at the twice a year, but we try to connect more often with Friendsgiving and all the things. And so
Mhm.
yeah, I'm so, so grateful to have my friends. If it wasn't for them, I would not be standing upright. They were my sole support.
Right, right. You lost your
Mhm.
parents.
Mhm. Mhm.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Th- So then, so then when you think about who you could really count on, I
Mhm.
imagine you have faces and names that just are right there. The
Absolutely.
and these were friend and these were this is one of those points, I think, that that I really think is so helpful for people to think about, you know, to think about the relationships around you right now, because when the worst things happen, those are the people that you can turn to, and you need that,
Right.
right? Because
Right.
you feel so alone and
Mm-hmm.
broken and half a person.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I, I had my girlfriends would come over and, just allow me to be, they were just with me in my grief. They would, and even when we're all together, it's like, if I were break down and I'm messy and I'm crying and I'm losing it, they just held space for me. They were, um, just, and it's really not about words. It's not about any of that. It's just about being with the person that is suffering and that is grieving so hard, but they're also grieving as well. And so it's just like we're all in this collective experience. Yeah. But luckily, it's just like I had those women and the guys too, and then I also have a group of women, a sangha of women who gather in meditation, led by my mindfulness teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So we would get together, and plus being with my mentor, there was lots of issues in the tissues, as we would say, where
I've never heard that, but I love issues in the tissues.
yes, yes. And so it was
Oh,
just like she would hold space for my tears and grief and
yeah.
allowed me to process. Yeah.
Okay, so that's making me think, if she was able to do that, um, she was able to be there with you while you were suffering, but she wasn't maybe physically internalizing the suffering, so it wasn't overwhelming her. Is that what mindfulness does? Or can you take me through mindfulness, how you
Okay.
got there and what it looks like?
Okay. So mindfulness is like being aware of what's happening to externally, internally, your inner landscape, and just being aware of what's going on within you. What are your thoughts? What are your body's reactions? And what are the emotions that are coming up? And so, really tuning into intentionally what's happening. So, it's like pausing, centering with your breath, and listening to what is going on with you. So um and being able to, as a teacher, I'm sure she was able to kind of separate herself and I'm sure there's emotions that were going on,
Sure.
because she's human and can relate or what
Right.
have
And
you, but
cares.
and cares, right? And so, but you can separate yourself from that. Me, when I was utilizing mindfulness, I was, it took a lot of practice, right? I sat in meditation and education and practice and practice, because mindfulness is not just something, yes, you can do it, but it just takes a lot of intentionality and practice.
Right. Right.
So
It's not really a part of our culture, is it? You know,
I
to
think I think more so now, but really our culture is on autopilot. We're just reactive and we just go, 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 go. And all these things are happening and I'm reacting and I'm not noticing why I am so anxious or I'm so angry or one thing in the morning may have irritated me and then something else and then something else and then something else. And it builds. And then you don't know why you're, crabby at your kid or irritated in the car or whatever that is.
Oh,
And
yes.
and so
Yes.
you so it's like stopping and learning to pause. That's what I advocate all the time. It's like you need to learn to take a moment and to pause and pay attention. What is happening inside my body? What have I been just thinking? What story have I been hooked onto and telling myself? Is that story 100% true? Absolutely not. will this story that I'm telling myself come into fruition? I don't think so. Most likely not. So like if you're driving to work and you're anticipating a conflict with a coworker or something, and you're hashing it out in your mind, that's causing you to feel stress, feel anger as you're driving down the road. Whereas that
Right.
thing is not happening right now in the moment. So it's very much like, pause. What do I see? I see the sun. I see the trees. I see the other cars. What do I hear? I hear the music playing. I hear, it's like I feel my hands on the steering wheel, my tush on the seat, just getting into that moment instead of creating scenario in our minds. Right. And so how that goes along with my grief is I eventually was able to recognize my triggers. When you're at the grocery store and you hear a song, or and you just
Yes.
kind of crumple, or when you're driving down the road and you hear a song, it's just like, okay, I see this, I hear this, I feel this. And now I just need to allow myself to feel the feeling of grief and sadness and anger, because you have to go through it instead of just tamping it down.
Right. Right. Well,
Mm.
mindfulness sounds a lot like the opposite of addiction,
Hmm.
where, I mean, people sometimes drink to excess to forget,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Or
Right.
you might use a substance that alters your
Mm-hmm.
perceptions or numbs things,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But
Mm-hmm.
that's not the same thing as
No,
mindfulness,
you
because you're
have to be
just
willing to feel it.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
then when you feel it, you find that it doesn't ultimately hurt you or destroy you, and maybe that's part of what the addiction is trying to avoid, that feeling that you're just you're going to be overcome with it.
Yeah, I like the way you said that. So I don't know where I was going to go because I heard a thought came to my mind. When you numb it, you don't get to heal from it.
Mm, yep.
And
Yep.
also, everything is temporary. So, this feeling, this really terrible, terrible feeling that you're having in this moment will subside eventually, because something new will come into your life, or something in just even in a short amount of time, too, because you could be feeling sad, then somebody says something that was funny, and then all of a sudden you're laughing. And so, these feelings that we have are temporary. They last not very long. And I'm just talking like singular moments. Yes,
Right.
I have
Right.
felt grief for almost 8 years now, but in these singular moments, recognizing that you're not going to feel like this forever, and not adding to the feeling, right? So here's another piece of mindfulness, is where you they call it the first and second arrowing. And so it's like when you have something painful happen, and then you start judging that pain. Oh, I shouldn't feel this way, or it's terrible that I feel this way. And you start with your thoughts, you start thinking, judging that situation, you're adding more suffering to the
Mm,
singular pain.
that yes, that makes a lot of sense. That is a really profound idea. How does that look like in a person's thought pattern?
Mm. Well, especially maybe around grief, it's like that pressure of like, well, one, nobody wants to sit in grief because it feels awful. No one, it's not pleasant. It's terrible. And so you want it to end. So then it's like, oh, I need to be getting over this. I need to be moving forward. I need to be, and so then that expectation or pressure that you're not healing fast enough um, prolongs your suffering as opposed to just sitting with it.
So that's the second arrow. The
Yeah.
first arrow is the pain of what you're
Yes.
feeling. The
Hmm.
second arrow is then the
Hmm.
judgment you put.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
Mm,
Hmm.
that's very profound.
Yeah.
So then does mindfulness help you to recognize first that you're feeling what you're feeling, and then maybe to try to stop that second thought of the judgment around it?
Yes. So to stop that second thought is about acceptance. And so having acceptance for the pain that you're experiencing right now and not restricting it. We tend to, it's like that those second arrows, those judgments that, kind of restricts around the pain, and which continues the suffering. So you need to kind of soften and offer compassion for your pain, where you're, it's like, I know I am hurting. What do I need? I love you. You're going to be okay. This is, so it's like being able to offer yourself love and compassion and not judgment of your experience.
I love that. That's so important. And it doesn't come naturally. It's something you really have to be taught. You have to
Hmm.
learn that.
Absolutely.
So do you feel like as you have learned to practice it with yourself, does it become more automatic towards, well, actually, I guess I just answered my own question. You said that specifically about your mom.
Mhm.
Your mindfulness practice helped you to then have compassion for your mom and what
Mhm.
she must have been suffering.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And again, it does take practice, starting with small skills or small activities, I guess, checking in with your five senses so many times a day. It's rewiring your brain to be in the present moment and recognizing what's going on instead of reactivity and autopilot. And so it does take practice.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
maybe there's some hopefulness in the aspect that just the triggering event of the grief, you actually did survive that. I
Mhm.
mean, it's hard to imagine something worse than what you just survived.
Absolutely. And it's also something, it's weird to get to after 8 years. I and my practice, I absolutely love who I am today.
Oh,
And if I have not gone through what I had gone through and the growth, then I was a different person, And so, I love who I am and what I have to serve and to be able to hold space for people and to support and just being able to just give myself compassion and like being able to make a mistake and be okay with it and give myself grace and because I'm an imperfect human. And so it's just, and to be able to be less anxious about judgment. I do not judge myself as much as I used to. I can't say 100%, but it's not as much.
right.
Yeah.
That's an amazing gift. And I
Mhm.
and I love how you phrased that, because you said what I love about myself. You didn't say um, that this was such a great thing that happened because it helped me change. Right? Because
Oh,
that's one of
yeah.
the right, because one of the twisted thoughts sometimes I think that comes out when you've experienced something really, really difficult is that somehow it was intended for your growth and benefit, and and yet that just feels a little icky.
Mhm. Right.
you know
Right.
like no, I would have loved to learn some of these things in a different way other than to lose my husband.
Mhm.
So yeah, so you don't have to be
Totally.
grateful for the hard experience,
Right.
to be grateful for the change that has happened in you that's made you more compassionate,
Yeah.
stronger, whatever it
Mhm.
is.
The growth. Yeah, absolutely. Mhm.
Yeah, I liked how you phrased that.
Mhm.
So you have this little boy who's lost his dad.
Mhm.
How how do you share that part of your story with others who may be experiencing something similar?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, it's like for me, I guess it's like it's important to be able to take care of yourself. You have to be able to take care of yourself as well. And be able to, so that you can be present for your child's emotions, so you can be have some capacity for your child. And that became my purpose. It's like, it's to be able to I'm always healing. There's always going to be an area of, it's not perfect, but I mean, to be able to have capacity to hold space for him. But you have to be able to take care of yourself first to be able to do that. If you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be able to have capacity for your child.
That's
and
right.
and to be also, mindful of what he needs or what she needs um to be able to, like, kind of normalize, try to normalize life outside. It's like you didn't lose your mom. It's like you didn't lose your life. Yes, we lost a significant part of our life, but we still have a lot of life to live. And to
Mm-hmm.
be able to, like, we're still going to go camping. We're still going to stick to traditions. We're still going to talk about dad. We're still going to, and so it's like he loves it now when we're all camping and he hears stories from our
Oh,
friends. And it's just very important. And I always, we always talk about dad. And so that the door's open for him to ask questions, for him to, because he was 7, but he
right.
still has a really, good memory, and so he remembers things about his dad. And what I also learned is that for him, as he has become a teenager, it's harder to not have his dad here.
Yeah.
And so, when he was younger, we tried to have people around him who loved him and would offer fun and support and
Mhm.
that kind of thing. But not having dad here as a teenager has been a level of his growth or his suffering and grief. And also remember that his grief is different than your grief,
Right.
so that his experience is different than yours. So we can't put our expectations on what we think he needs or we think they need, and just kind of let that unfold for them, but be a soft place for them to be, to have their feelings or not, because they
So,
may shut down.
so is that a hard balance then between um, being compassionate and the soft place, but at the same time having to have the boundaries that a teenager needs? Has that been a struggle at all, or his personality might be different, where he's maybe more go with the
He
flow?
definitely is more, just like, I respect his boundaries. I respect him as a human, and, like, he will come to me when he needs it, and, like, when he's ready. I try not to force it. Obviously I'm his mom, and I'm like, "Are you okay?" That kind of
Right,
thing. But
right, right,
I
right.
have learned
Which
to
you
kind
would
of,
do, even if his dad was alive. He would still be,
yes,
are
yes,
you, have you eaten? Did you make your bed? Did you brush your
yes.
teeth?
Yeah, like, because it's hard for me because I am, so much of a people pleaser that I need, it's like I've really had to learn with my own codependency of, like, his emotions are his and he can have them, and they're not about me. And so it's like, really, mindfulness is also a huge part of that, of being able to be aware of how, like, I'm, needing him to feel better, where it's like, that's not mine. I'm going to just be there. So when he does feel better or when he feels bad, I'll just be with him and still love him unconditionally. Um,
Right.
yeah. And
Well, that
he's,
sounds to me like you step out of the way to give him space for his own mindfulness. Is
mhm.
that kind of what you were saying? That seems like.
Yeah, so he gets to process how he wants to process.
Mm.
I try to talk to him a bit about mindfulness, and he just kind of rolls
Right,
his
right,
eyes.
right.
But it's like he gets it kind of you know
Peripherally.
yeah, indirectly he gets it, but
Right, right.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, you're probably teaching more by what you do and how you react to things than by
Mhm.
what you are actively teaching.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So that's very good. That's very good advice though for someone who's trying to comfort a grieving child.
Mhm. And I also got him into therapy. And so, and he was with, his counselor for a long, long, long time. And so that was helpful too, because that took me out of the equation. And I trusted her to be able to
Right.
hold space for him. And that, yeah. And so he had a safe place, but it's not mom, the counselor, because it's hard not to, turn on the counselor hat when you're, trying to. So it really did help kind of give space with that.
I love that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Mhm.
That's right because you were a trained counselor.
Mhm.
And yeah, I like that idea that you were there for him, but he also had these resources
Yeah.
that you might provide for someone else's child, but he still needed them and not, but he needed to be able to have you as mom.
Right. Right. There had to
Mm,
be a boundary and a clear distinction. Mhm.
right.
Mhm.
So so say somebody has tried lots of different avenues to try to handle their grief, still looking for the positive ways, right? Because we
Mhm.
know that
Mhm.
there are, you can use substances to dull the feelings of grief, and that's one way that you know it's easily accessible, and yet it doesn't ultimately
Mhm.
help you to
Mhm.
heal.
Right.
So so how would someone go about mindfulness? What would be what's a little roadmap you might give them?
Oh, like how to access a resource or
Yeah,
just
yeah. Is
kind
that
of
is that what they should? Yeah, should they go to a resource? Are there simple exercises that they can learn and practice
Oh,
today?
absolutely. I think, well, there's a ton of resources out there for sure. Lots of great books by Jack Kornfield and Tara Brach. I think, one thing that I have my clients and I do for myself is checking in with your five senses. You take a moment and close your eyes, take in a couple deep breaths, and then open your eyes and then just become the observer. What do you see? So then you look around the space you're in and notice the things that you see. Do you notice colors? Like I'm looking here and I see the trees out of my window, my plants, my computer. It's just naming what you see in this moment, and
Mhm.
then take a moment and what do you hear? What are the sounds that you're hearing? You might be hearing my voice, traffic, birds, and then what do you smell? Maybe somebody's cooking. And then what are you tasting? What do you taste in this moment? Lingering coffee, it might be toothpaste, a gum or a mint. And then what are you touching physically? It's like it feeling your seat in the chair, your back on the chair, your hands together. Do you feel your clothes on your skin, hair on your neck, and just grounding yourself in this moment and being able to recognize it's like everything in this moment is okay.
I just did that practice with you, and I can tell you That's exactly how I'm feeling. In this very moment,
Mm-hmm.
everything is okay.
Thing is okay.
Yeah, it's quiet, it's still, my mind is still.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was a great exercise, and
Yeah.
that only took a few seconds to just
Right.
tune in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so being able to do this practice, I've told my clients, they're like, oh, I've tried to be mindful. I did it. I tell them that if they did it 100 times in a day, that is fantastic because you're being intentional and you're rewiring your brain to be back into the present moment and off autopilot. If you've only done it once or twice, then most of your day you are on autopilot. And so it's like, so come back as often as you possibly can, because then you're disconnected from the stories that cause you suffering. You are, just kind of in the present moment. This is where you can find gratitude for what's happening in this moment, as opposed to just running, 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 running.
Mm. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, in those moments after somebody passes,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it affects you in a way where you now have a lot of to do
Mm-hmm.
list items.
Mm-hmm.
Um, one of my struggles has often been, I talk about it like my brain is open with 100 tabs, like it's a computer with 100 tabs open, and I can't close the tab because I'm afraid I'm going to let something slip through the cracks.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see where a moment of mindfulness would probably, just the stillness and the peacefulness that I feel in my body, in my mind right now. I can see where I would see those tabs differently. Like, okay, let's
Mm-hmm.
take one tab. We can close the other ones. Let's take one tab. And if it kicks up all that anxiety again, then I can ground myself again and give it another shot.
Absolutely. And so, and I think that's very profound, because it's like that's so important. You have to, but you also have to recognize your capacity, right?
Mm,
Especially in the beginning. It's like I had to honor what I couldn't do, and being able to learn to ask for help too. But it's like, if laying on the couch all day long and being, giving, my son some,
mhm.
making sure my son was fed was all I could do in that moment and that day, great. I'm
Yeah,
going to honor that capacity, because when you second arrow yourself of judgment, I'm not doing enough, then you're increasing your suffering. So it's like you
yes,
learning to, because it's not, when you're in deep grief, deep sadness, yeah, you're not going to remember to be mindful all the time. It's not as pretty as it sounds. And so
right.
it's about intentionality and practice and giving yourself grace for what you can do in the day. And if that's just taking a shower, that's just taking a shower, because eventually your capacity will expand, but don't expect it to for a while.
Right. Right. As a
Mm-hmm.
matter of fact, from what you're saying, it's don't expect,
Yeah.
just experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Without judgment. And
Yeah.
that's all mindfulness is, being aware of what's happening in the moment without judgment. So
Yeah.
do not judge your emotions. Do not judge how you're managing your emotions. It's just allowing it to be. I would recommend journaling your thoughts and, what's going on with you, to kind of give it a space to be. But yeah, really trying to not judge what you're
Mm.
experiencing.
So, Christina, this has been really, really a fantastic discussion.
Mhm.
I'm
Thank
so
you.
I'm so grateful for everything that you've shared about your experiences, about the love for your husband, your
Mhm.
experience losing your mom and
Mhm.
stepdad. Thank you for
Mhm.
opening up like that.
Mhm.
It's it's so relatable, what you've been talking about. Can you share just a little bit about how you believe you have changed as a person? I know you touched on that earlier, but I would love to
Yeah.
hear you share that.
I feel like I'm definitely like just softer and more, like I said, more compassionate and graceful towards myself. Before I was very anxious. I struggled with depression. I worried about like just doing the wrong thing. And I had my own internal stuff. Right. And it was pretty hard on myself. And so now I'm just definitely more forgiving and willing to kind of step outside my comfort zone. Right, I am like more confident than I was 20 years ago. And so it's like being, yes, I'm still anxious, but I mean, I'm willing to step outside my comfort zone and try new things and meet new people and put myself out there, and even like in a space like this. And so, which
Right.
is, a testament to my growth, really, is to be able to do a podcast. And I really am grateful for your having this podcast and allowing space for people to tell their stories and then to help others, maybe learn from what they're, like, oh, it's not going to feel this bad all the time and forever,
Yeah.
but, and I'm going to give myself grace while I'm feeling bad because that's okay. Mhm.
Yeah,
So,
thank you so
mhm,
much.
mhm,
It's such a hopeful message
mhm,
what you've shared, and
mhm,
it's, I think, exactly the thought is, yeah, okay, she's presenting as someone who's gone through something so hard, and
mhm,
yet she is thriving.
mhm.
So it's a great message of hope that, like what you have said before, you won't always feel this bad.
Right. Right.
There, and that, just that little bit of hope can truly mean the world
Right.
to when you're in the darkest grief.
Mm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So, my last question, as I ask everyone,
Mhm.
is, what do you think it means to grieve well?
Oh, I is to love your messy self and to give like I've said, give yourself compassion and be graceful to yourself, to be able to honor feeling awful and to honor yourself as you do. And there's no shame in how you're grieving. There's no right way, and to just allow yourself to kind of unfold and allow it to unfold the way it's supposed to. I think that's, and it's not going to be what you expect, so remove expectations. So, yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
It's such the opposite message of trying to have a perfectly curated life.
Oh gosh, no.
and
Yeah.
and that doesn't exist.
Right.
That does-
Right. Yeah, you don't have to be perfect at it at all. And really, yeah. Mhm.
Thank you so much.
You.
I really appreciate you sharing what you
Yes.
did
Yes.
today.
Yes. Mm.
All right. Well, I am going to practice more mindfulness.
Awesome. Awesome.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you so much. I did really enjoy this. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.